Hi, Mr. Ridgway here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Industrial Revolution and the change that starts. Please note that we are not going to be looking at the second Industrial Revolution, though. Yes, there were actually two of them. The first Industrial Revolution, though, to not get overly complicated, is really the thing that gets us to the point we are today, where we have telephones, GPS, TVs, machines that build other machines. We owe all of this to the Industrial Revolution. So let's talk about it. Okay, so we're looking at a couple of things with the Industrial Revolution. First of all, why does it actually occur? So what causes such kind of mass transformations in human society? And then, second, how do these transformations affect human beings? How does this change the way we work, the way we live, all the things that we kind of consider to be life? So why do these changes happen, and how do they change the world in which we operate? So what was the Industrial Revolution? Well, the most simple definition you can probably give for it is that it's a change in human production from roughly about the 1700s to mid-1800s. And really, there's a whole bunch of different ways that we can kind of define this shift. It's a change from things being human-powered to being machine-powered. So we now have tools that are much more efficient. It's powered by a whole series of things: coal, steam, water, railroads, you name it, and the Industrial Revolution is probably powered by it. Other things like oil and electricity will come along later in the second Industrial Revolution. But the Industrial Revolution really does fuel some massive transformations in society. So why does this Industrial Revolution happen? Well, it's a long, sort of, as always history is, a complicated story, but it has to do with a couple of key factors and ingredients coming together that really make this happen. The first is a change in agriculture, what we can call the Agricultural Revolution. Land in about the 1700s had become more productive from farming techniques. This is things like crop rotation, that you shouldn't plant the same thing in the same field year after year because it depletes the soil. But we also see things like enclosure, which is a practice that started in Europe, particularly in England, where wealthy people buy out peasants' land and make larger fields. Now, larger fields means that you can grow more things on them, but it also means that the land in and of itself is more efficient. You produce more things. Enclosure, though, also has a really, really important other effect, which kind of leads us to the second cause of the Industrial Revolution, is you need people in order to make a change. You have to have people working in factories, you have to have them producing things that they haven't normally produced, and you're going to have to get those people from somewhere. So when the enclosure practice happens, when the wealthy go out and buy peasants' land, these peasants don't have anywhere to go. And so where do they go? They go into cities and they look for work. And together, what do we get? More food's available and more people are living in urban settings. And then let's also discuss another series of causes, which we can call just by the acronym PRIM. PRIM is really having four things possible in order for industry to work. You have to have people, you have to have labor in order to do the job, you have to have access to resources, which either means that you have rivers nearby to transport things or literally the raw materials to make things. You got to have investment. People have to pay and build factories. And last but not least, you have to have people who are motivated or who feel that they have like a sense of entrepreneurship to go on and actually have a reason to industrialize. So you put the Agricultural Revolution together and you put PRIM together and you've pretty much got the two kind of great causes for the Industrial Revolution. So how did the Industrial Revolution change people's work and life? Remember the acronym SQUALL, because as you'll see, living in cities is not very fun. It's kind of a gigantic storm. These changes, they're positive and negative, but they are very, very slow even. It takes many, many years for industrialization really to get cranking, even though it's kind of a very, very recent development in human history. So first of all, the skills that are demanded of people. Normally, when you had somebody make a product, that product took a lot of skill. It was what we call high skill work. And now with machines, that skill can be done at an incredibly low skill level. You can have a machine that's literally its only job is to do the exact same thing over and over again. So we see that high school work, generally speaking, can become very repetitive, kind of low skill work. Now, quality of life. When you're in the middle of the Industrial Revolution, the quality of life for a lot of people changes. In some cases, people have access to more products, but also you're now living in cities where you have people from very, very different backgrounds, especially socioeconomic backgrounds, living together. You have very rich people, oftentimes living next to very poor people who are making things for them. And that means that social class differences in terms of people who own the factories and people who don't, generally, as the Industrial Revolution goes on, increases. That being said, though, these cities do give a unique opportunity for people in their lives they never had before. Urbanization. So with all those peasants coming into cities, it means that people are moving from rural areas to those industrial areas themselves. So we actually get people eventually living more in cities than they do out in the middle of the countryside. Now, A is for almighty efficiency. The Industrial Revolution is really kind of based around this idea that we can make more goods more quickly, cheaper, and that they can become also then more available. And it's all about efficiency. How fast and how quick can you make something compared to the past? That being said, though, for a lot of these people who go and move into the cities, the location of their work changes. Previously, you had what's called a household form of labor, where everything is made in the home. And then things start to change. Now, it's not like all of a sudden people just start running to factories and that's where they work. In some cases, there's kind of like a middle step where we see something called outwork, or the putting out system, where factories actually send work to people in their homes, and then people, for example, complete like a pattern or something for a textile, and then they send it back to the factory in order to be finished. Now, the most efficient, though, to go back on that theme, means of labor is that you move the labor itself to one spot, and that's what a factory does. And that's exactly the way things are today. It's how we do education. We don't typically educate people now in their own homes unless you're homeschooled. We actually now bring all the students to one location in order to be educated, because it increases the efficiency of schooling. Speaking of quality of life and urbanization, life in cities is really, really isolating, cramped, and incredibly, incredibly dirty. And this is why we see during this time things like pandemics and really, really gross stories about sewers overfilling and lots of just kind of nasty city life. There's very, very few social services in these cities when they come around. So it's not like you could go to your city fire department or your city waste manager, because they didn't exist. So that's all the time that I got for this very brief introduction to the Industrial Revolution. Again, this is just meant as a highlight for you to kind of get your feet wet before you start jumping into more diverse things like the Second Industrial Revolution, and then also some changes and criticisms that come of this movement. Until then, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.